Good evening, everyone. Welcome to, let's see, must be March 10th of 2022, Dallas Social Toastmasters. My name is Mark Schroeder, and that's probably not really supposed to hit the gavel. I'm really the Zoom coordinator, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things. We're going to be extra challenged tonight because we're also trying to use the presentations materials here and all the AV stuff. So if you have problems, try to get us information to help out. I'm not going to tell you what my phone number is on the recording that's going to go up online, but I will put it in the chat for anybody that needs my phone number so that they could at least text me if something's going wrong. Other than that, on Zoom, we're going to keep everything as quiet as we can. Most people will be on mute as far as we can keep you on mute so that we don't have a whole lot of extra noise. You will find, as usual, that there's going to be a ... in the box with most of the pictures of people so that you can pin them to your screen even when they're not talking, should you want to do that. You can also use gallery view if you need to see people as a whole group. That would be particularly important when you need to look for the timer. We have a timer here locally. Rob, do we have an online timer as well? Or just... Okay, so we have a timer here only in the room, but he's going to hold the cards in front of the camera like that at the appropriate time. So from a timing standpoint, make sure that you keep, that's going to be, I guess, Rob Giles is the timer visible because he's going to say stage is what he says. That's what it's listed as. All right, with that, we will go ahead and get our meeting started. I'm going to bring up Suleiman to come on up and do the opening of our meeting. Suleiman.
Welcome everyone to another meeting of Dallas Social Toastmasters. At this time, please take a moment to silence your phones and electronic devices to respect our meeting and minimize distractions for the speakers. For those of you who are so inclined, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, I would like to offer you a thought. How you do one thing is how you do everything. When you improve your effectiveness in one area, you improve your effectiveness in other areas. Now, please help me to welcome our club president, joining us through Zoom, Lee King.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Welcome, everyone. It looks like we have at least one guest on Zoom, so please help me welcome Barry. And do we have anyone at Ozona?
Hi, and Michael Brown is new too.
Yeah, Michael Brown.
All right. We will hear from our guests a little bit later after the meeting, but for now, we'll hand this over to the Toastmaster, Mark Sims.
Thank you all. And for all of y'all that are on Zoom, I want to point out that we have a guest here in the room, Levi. And Levi, is this your first time to be at a Toastmasters meeting? Awesome. Well, thank you. And later on in the evening, Lee will get to know each of the guests a little bit better and introduce you and have a couple of questions for you and pick your brain. The theme tonight, YouTube madness, or maybe a subtitle might be "Stop Me Before I Click Again," because we obviously all are very, very familiar with YouTube. It's a part of all of our lives. But in my case, I have a little more free time these days to spend idle hours, because at the end of November last year, I retired. I'm not sure if I'm going to stay retired permanently. I might go back after I've had a nice long break. But people would ask me, okay, what are you going to do when you're retired? Aren't you going to have a ton of free time? And I'm at least filling up some of that with more YouTube viewing. I mean, not ridiculous. It's usually would rarely ever be more than 2 hours a day. But what started off at one point in time was just now and then looking up and playing an old song from years past. It's kind of expanded, and I will get into that more in a little bit. Now, I'm totally a consumer of information. I'm not a provider like David Newland is. I don't have my own website, or not even like our club is, because our meetings also go on YouTube and you can watch them there. But I'll expand on this theme during the course of the evening, tell you a little bit about my own journey, and it may be that you'll have your own chance later on to discuss yours likewise. At this point, I want to introduce our duty holders. Our first duty holder is our timer, Rob Giles. Rob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow members, guests. As your timer, I'm here to help you to be able to speak within a specific amount of time during different times during the meeting. One is for prepared speeches, in which case I will ask somebody else to do that since I am the prepared speaker. My speech will be 6 to 8 minutes. So whoever takes over, understand that you will present the green card at 6, the yellow card at 7, and the red card at 8. At which point I will have 30 seconds to wrap up, hopefully. For the next timing portion, it's going to be table topics. Table topics, you need to reach at least 1 minute. The goal is 1 to 2 minutes. So at 1 minute, you're going to get the green card. At 1.5 minutes, you'll get the yellow card. And then at 2 minutes, you'll get the red card. Again, you'll have 30 seconds to wrap up in order to qualify as best of the table topic speakers and win a ribbon. The last thing that I will time is our evaluations. In this case, 1 evaluation, but I will still time it. It's 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, you'll get the green card. 2.5 minutes, the yellow card. And at 3 minutes, the red card. At which point, the evaluator will have 30 seconds to wrap up. I will tell all the times when called upon by the Toastmaster, Topic Master, and General Evaluator. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Rob, just so you know, when you're coming up here for your speech, you can give your stuff. Well, actually, Mark had agreed to do it. That's fine if you want to snag it, John. That will take care of us just fine. Our next duty holder is our posture monitor, which is me. And what I'm going to be doing is observing the posture. It'd be a little easier to observe, obviously, the people in the room. But if I see someone, can catch someone online, doing something, some type of body language that might detract from your message. For example, if a speaker really had his hand in his pockets, or maybe was jingling some change, or maybe, I don't know, wringing their hands. I've seen that. Speakers do that. Something that might distract the audience's attention, I will make that noise, and that would hopefully motivate the person that's speaking to learn from that and to not repeat those particular habits. And I will make a report on what I see when I'm so called upon by the General Evaluator. Our next duty holder is our counter, who is Lisa Mitchell, who is on Zoom. Lisa, please discuss your role.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. My duty as the awe counter is to listen carefully for verbal distractions, such as you know, and so, but other filter words or sounds. I will also keep track of repeated words like the and I. Lastly, I will keep track of long pauses when they are distracting. Normally, when I hear these crutch words, I would use the clicker to notify the speaker. Since I am virtual, not only will I not click during the prepared speeches, I will not click during the entire meeting. I will, however, keep track of the number of these types of errors when speaking. I will keep track of these numbers of I'm sorry, I apologize. I will, however, keep track of a number of these types of speaking errors in writing for each person that speaks. Big three prepared speakers, table topic contestants, evaluators, and duty holders. And I will give a report when called upon by the general evaluator towards the end of the meeting. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Our vote counter is Karen Lee. Karen, please discuss your role.
With vote counter this evening, I will be keeping track of the votes. We have our cups here and our ballots, so you can mark your ballots for best speaker, then best evaluator, the best table topic, best of the big three, and put them in the cups, and I'll come by and pick them up and tally and give a report when I'm called upon at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Our grammarian is Mark Schroeder. Mark, please discuss your role.
Well, sorry, that's the way it sounds to me since I'm over there listening to it, a slight second or two delay. My job tonight is going to be the grammarian, and that means that I have two duties in particular. I'm supposed to listen for good or bad uses of the English language and make a note of those so that I can make a report at the end of the meeting. And I also picked the word of the day. The word of the day is on this little bitty postage size thing about that big on your screen if you happen to be at home. Here, it's a little bit larger, but not a lot. But the word of the day is prosaic. For those of you who remember a couple of weeks ago when I put up a speech by, or at least a talk by Marcus Buckingham on 3 things that you could do to improve your leadership immediately, one of the things he said was that you could immediately start making sure as a leader that you are in touch with your people once a week, that you talk to your people once a week. And he said, I hate to sound prosaic. And I'm like, what does that mean? So prosaic is the word of the day. Prosaic means dull, unimaginative, or ordinary. So that's what is up here. So to be prosaic is to be dull and not particularly brilliant or worthy of attention. The meaning of the word, if you ever lose track of what it means, the way to think about it is it means more like prose than like poetry. So in other words, it's more common, more regular than poetry. That's a nice, easy way to, mnemonic for remembering what the word is. You're required to use that word for the table topics responses in order to be eligible for a ribbon, and we encourage you to use it at other times during the meeting. Also, I have, I guess, technically 1 1/4 duty because Rob, when he is up here, I'm going to be Rob's timer. So Rob, oh, you got it. You changed that up?
John volunteer.
John volunteer. Okay, never mind. I have only 1 duty. Thank you so much.
And Mark, you've hurt my feelings because all those years when my boss was telling me I was prosaic, I was thinking, man, I had it going on. But just a subtle put down. Okay, I'm crushed. To expand a little more on YouTube, just a little bit of information from Wikipedia. I'm not sure the exact date, but it's obviously an American online video sharing and social media platform. And at the time of the posting on Wikipedia, it noted that YouTube had more than 1 billion monthly users who collectively watch more than 1 billion hours of video each day. Pretty staggering. And like I say, I've started to contribute a little more towards that. And one thing I like about YouTube is just the incredible stuff that you can find on it. Because at one point, and I think this was earlier in 2021, I was thinking back in time of a nighttime drama that would come on in the late 80s. I finally looked at some old or looked up some old TV guides from that time, found the name of it. And it was called A Year in the Life. Appropriately enough, it was about a year in the life of a certain family. It must have been a pretty dull year because the show only lasted a year, but I remember it was pretty good. And there was a very young Sarah Jessica Parker who actually played on it before she became really, really well known. And I finally was able to find it on YouTube, and Some Kind Soul had managed to load not only the majority of the episodes for the 1 year it was on TV, but also a preceding miniseries that I had never heard of before. So there were at least a few other people in the universe who had the same unusual interest that I did. Also, at one point in time, I started thinking about a miniseries that had came on late in the 80s called America. Not the good old USA that we're familiar with, spelled America. And this was about a very highly unlikely takeover of America by what was then called the Soviet Union. And the intent was to show what life in that type of occupation would be like. Spoiler alert is it would not be much fun. They did a very good job of pointing that out, but they were kind of poor predictors of world events, because just a couple of years after the miniseries, the Soviet Union at least temporarily imploded. And so that, okay, maybe it wasn't at that time quite as big of a threat as we thought. But again, this was a very ambitious miniseries. It was on the best part of a week, I think about 14 hours. And again, Some Kind Soul managed to load all of it on there. So I spent a good part of the week myself rewatching the miniseries, of which I had only remembered bits and pieces back from its original showing. And another example of something I've recently been watching is, here in the last month, I watched about 20 episodes of Firing Line. This was a Q&A format show. It was hosted by William F. Buckley Jr., a noted political conservative. And the show and its live viewing came on, it's from like the mid-60s through the late 90s. And it involved a Q&A of prominent guests on discussions of things such as foreign affairs, political events, social events. And again, William F. Buckley Jr. was a very well-known political conservative. At that time in life, I wasn't so conservative. So at a time in life when I probably should have been out getting into some kind of trouble, doing something fun, I was watching this serious news show, and sometimes my neck getting red when I would hear his opinions that maybe I disagreed with. But the benefit of looking at it now is it's almost like going into a time machine to see the issues that were discussed in this, or in my case, late 70s, early 80s. See the, if nothing else, the clothing styles, hairstyles from back then. So again, it's a lot of fun to, again, go back in a time machine and see what the big stories were in that era. So those are just a few examples of how I've been spending time on YouTube, depending on how you want to define it. And what I'll do here in a few minutes after we've had a prepared speech is to kind of wrap this up and maybe tell where I go from here. At this time, we want to introduce our prepared speaker for tonight. And to do that, I will call on his evaluator, Justin Faust, to discuss the objectives of Rob's speech. Justin.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I'm actually online. Okay, so Rob's speech, his speech title is Living with Letters. The purpose of this speech, the purpose of the project is for the members to introduce or review basic presentation software strategies for creating and using slides to support or enhance speech. The purpose of this speech is for the member to demonstrate his or her understanding of how to use presentation software, including the creation of slides, incorporating the technology into a speech.
Thank you, Justin. And good job on getting the speech title correct. It changed slightly since the original agenda came out. Please help me welcome our speaker, Rob Giles, Living with Letters. Living with Letters, Rob Giles.
All of us live with letters. DTM, PM1, NASA. We have letters that we shorten words up with all the time. It's supposed to help us, right? It's supposed to make our lives easier. But there are some letters, when grouped together, that may make you feel not so great. And perhaps it's not even the letters, but it's what's behind the letters. Toastmasters, guests, I want to talk a little bit tonight about a life with letters and a progression from one point to another point down the line. When I was younger, I had some problems medically. Some of you know about these. And I was diagnosed with, well, LWA. Got a little ahead of myself there. It's a little back, but we're going to get on that. I was diagnosed with UC. And more people today may know what UC is prominently because we have ads all over on how you can correct it and fix it or minimize the symptoms of UC. Well, what is UC? UC is ulcerative colitis. And ulcerative colitis is something that is prevalent throughout the world, especially here in the United States. There's approximately 100 million, not 100 million, 1 million people in the United States that suffer from ulcerative colitis. And I was one of those people. That seems like way in the past for me. It's something that, just to kind of put that a little more perspective, 10 to 12 people in every 100,000 end up with ulcerative colitis, UC. And what is ulcerative colitis? What does it do? Well, it affects your large intestine, as a lot of people call it, your bowel. And you can see here on the left, you had a diagram of your large intestine, your small intestine. Ulcerative colitis affects the large intestine, and you can see over on the right-hand side, that's a little portion where it shows what is ulcerative colitis. Well, ulcer is when ulcers start to take over the large intestine. And as you can imagine, if those go on, that can cause some serious problems. There's a little close-up as well. That's not a real person there, but it gives you a good idea where you can see the ulcer on the inside. Sometimes, if you have ulcerative colitis, it can lead to something else, especially if you're a man. Men are more likely to get this next thing that I'm going to talk about than women are. The next thing is PSC. Anybody here know what PSC stands for? There's one person I thought might know. But PSC, for me, it triggers something. It brings emotions up because it led to something that was both horrible but yet amazing. And I'll get to that in a moment. PSC is primary sclerosing cholangitis. Well, what is that, right? People who have ulcerative colitis, and if they're a man, they could end up with PSC. And what PSC is a strickening, a narrowing of your bile ducts. On here, you'll see the liver. You'll see the stomach kind of in the background there. All of these green little tendrils here are your bile ducts. You'll see there's, not quite there yet. You'll see down here, this is the duodenum, and that's the first portion of your intestine, your small intestine. That's where your stomach empties into. And that's also where the bile duct, your common bile duct, connects from your liver to your intestine. And what does that do? That allows bile to come in and to help to digest what you're eating. It's very important. So what does PSC do? Well, PSC causes strictures. It causes narrowing. You can see that here in a couple of places. Right here, up here it shows where it's a little narrower, and here as well. And it can eventually get so bad that that bile cannot get out. And when that happens, the bile is still being produced. It's trying to get out, but it can't. So what does it do? It builds up. It builds up into your liver, which can cause your liver to be diseased. Ultimately, that can cause you to be jaundiced. It can cause itching throughout all of your skin on your body. It can cause fatigue. These are all symptoms of PSC when it gets really bad. What can we do for PSC? Well, we can do a couple of things. We can pray and hope it goes away. We can also perform what's called an ERCP. Another set of letters, right? Well, for this brought me a little hope. And what does ERCP stand for? Well, this one's a little tougher. Endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography. And what is that? Well, let's put it simply. That's when they put a tube down your mouth. It's kind of like an endoscopy if you've had an endoscopy, but it's a little bit more in depth and a little deeper into your digestive tract. You'll see here on the right-hand side, you have a tube that comes down, goes down through your stomach into the duodenum of your intestine, and then from there, actually into the bile duct. And they do this to find out just how restricted that bile duct is. If it's not so restricted, they'll go in there and then do a couple of different things. One is what they call a balloon, a dilation balloon. They put the balloon in there and they blow it up enough to stretch that out so that it can be functional again. The other thing that they can try is to put a stent in there. A lot of you may think of stents and think of heart problems and solving those that way. But that's what can be done. You can kind of see a little more closer here where the camera, and it's an actual camera. It comes down and they see it, and the doctors are working it just like a video game almost. And it goes into that little bile duct there. And those are the two things that they hope when they go down and they can do. It's not always the case that they can do anything. When that happens, that's when you have the severe jaundice, fatigue, and also itching throughout your skin. So when it gets so severe, what happens? Well, you can actually die from that. It may be a matter of years, 5, 10 years, but you can actually die from that. Is there a resolution to that? or a solution to that? Yes. Liver transplant. Liver transplant can resolve it because what it does is it gets rid of the bile duct along with the liver. And you can't just replace the bile duct, and you can't just replace the liver. You got to replace both because the bile duct goes into the liver, as you saw, the little tendrils going in. At least now, that's how it is. Perhaps in the future, it may be different. But it can be resolved with the liver transplant. So if you have a liver transplant, you have a couple of options. One is with a cadaver donor. Somebody who has agreed to donate parts of their body, sometimes specific parts, sometimes just the liver, and they can actually donate it once they've passed away. In that case, you get their whole entire liver if it agrees with you. And if you can get past that first year, you have a good shot, approximately 85 to 90%, to live for a good long while, up to even like 20 years or more. The other option is a living donor. How do they do that? You can't take a liver out of somebody and put it into somebody else, can you? Right? Well, you can if you do it the right way. The common bile duct on the liver actually is formed from two separate ducts. So when you take a liver from a live donor, you basically cut it in half, roughly. Much of the time it's 60-40%. But what happens at this point is that the live donor has part of that bile duct still connected. He loses or she loses part of their liver. And then the recipient gets the other half. Can you live with half a liver? Absolutely. Matter of fact, both the donor's liver and the recipient's liver will grow back to full size. It won't grow those bile ducts, but it will grow back to full size, and it can do so in as little as a week. That's how powerful that liver is. It's amazing. Now, for myself, I went down this road. I had UC. I ended up with PSC. Then I went ahead and had an ERCP. Couldn't really do anything. So I ended up with a liver transplant. Of course, I had a lot of loved ones that were very anxious once they heard that a live donor was an option to volunteer to give me half of their liver. But there was one person that was faster than the rest as far as volunteering. And that was my older brother, Marty. This is a photo of us after the transplant. You may not recognize me, but I'm over here second from the left. You can see I have a little bit more weight in my face, and that's because it wasn't long after the transplant. And there's my brother with the sunglasses hanging down. His recovery was harder than mine because normally a person who's donating, they're living their life, they're not suffering at all. So when they get to that point, now they're suffering from their sacrifice. For the donor, for the recipient, they've been suffering almost instantaneously. When they get that liver, they start to feel better. Of course, that's after they come out of ICU. It's an amazing thing. My brother went as far as to work with one of the local papers to have an article written up about what we went through. That photo was taken a couple of months after the transplant. I still have a lot more weight in my face than I do now. But it's an amazing thing. Sometimes you have to live with letters in your life. But sometimes it's the people in your life that can help you to get through and move on to a better time. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rob. That was very inspiring. Reminded me of kind of a wild acronym I saw a couple of weeks ago. I was looking at an old World Book Encyclopedia back from the early 80s, and I actually saw the words for CAT scan. It was like computerized axial terminal or something like that. I've never seen that before. And John, would you please give us a timer's report?
14 minutes. 6 seconds.
So he just barely went over there. Okay. Just by a little bit. All right. And tonight we will obviously not be voting on the best speaker. We only had one speaker, an excellent speech. But if you want to provide Rob any written notes, any feedback on how he did, or if anyone online wants to send Rob, if it's possible, through private chat, any notes, that would be very much appreciated. And just some final thoughts on YouTube. What my plans are from here is I have a really good long list of a bunch of old sporting events I want to look up from prior decades. I really don't pay much attention to sports anymore, but when I was young, I was a real sports junkie. And so going back to 60s, 70s, 80s, there's a bunch of either prior World Series games that you can see on YouTube, Super Bowls, some old boxing matches. I haven't got far enough yet, or maybe practical enough to use like the how-to videos that you see on YouTube. And I haven't even started or thought about using their TV service. I haven't yet cut the cord on with the cable company. So that might be something down the road. And each of you probably have your own story, because everyone, again, to some extent is impacted by YouTube. So this may jog your own thinking on your own journey. With that, we will head into the table topics portion of the meeting, which will be led by our president, Lee King. Lee.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. For the benefit of our guests, table topics is the impromptu portion, speaking portion of this meeting, where only I really know what the person is going to talk about. I will ask a question and then call on someone to answer the question. The first question for today has to do with YouTube's and TV series.
Hang on one second, Lee. We're having to get the speaker back on here in the room. Try again.
Try again.
Okay, we're good now. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, that's okay. So my first question is going to have to do with TV series, because there are a lot of old TV series. Some you can find, some you can't. Sometimes you can YouTube sections of some TV series. But the question is, if you could put any TV series, either current or from your past, on YouTube, where you could go back and watch the series through YouTube and watch it from start to finish if you wanted to, what TV series would that be and why? Lisa.
Thank you. I think I would probably put the TV series Friends on YouTube if it already is not there. The reason I would do so is because I believe that series is not prosaic. I watch it every night on TV now. I find it very entertaining. I watch it every night before I go to sleep. I could probably quote every line of it. It makes my husband crazy. So I find that show to be very entertaining. I think it's entertaining for everybody of all ages. I think it is good entertainment for, like I said, anybody of any ages. It can go from kids to senior citizens. So I just find it to be, like I said, entertaining and just an overall good. So I think it would be good to be put on YouTube. So thank you.
People refer to YouTube for a number of reasons. Some people, it's for more pleasure. Other people, it's for business. For some people, it's for educational purposes. There's a number of reasons why people turn to YouTube. So my question is, currently, what is your main purpose for using YouTube? And would you set any New Year's resolutions to change your YouTube habits, either what the type of things that you want to watch on YouTube, the amount of time you spend on YouTube, anything like that? So again, what do you currently use YouTube primarily for? And would you set any New Year's resolutions to your YouTube viewing habits? John.
Thank you, Lee, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I use YouTube as filler. I have educational sites. I have just kind of entertainment sites. I like to watch people like make things and learn new things. I have some photography sites I watch about old analog photography. I've been getting back into that again. And so I've been watching a bunch of old stuff. Now I wish I had my dark room set back up, and one of these days I'll get it going again. I recently found this guy called Pavlo from Ukraine, and I've been watching some of his YouTube videos. And right now, the last few videos he's made, he's stuck over there and been talking a little bit about the war, and they've been huddled up. But they're still safe so far, but now I haven't heard from him in about a week. So who knows what happened to him? He may not be around anymore. So YouTube to me is prosaic. I mean, most of the stuff, shout out to Dagan. Yes, I watch Dagan's YouTube channel and everything too. I don't want to miss that and get in trouble. But yeah, I watch Dagan's channel too for information. But I just enjoy watching other people in life and picking out. I've always been a watcher. I can go to the bar, just sit there all by myself, and I just like to watch all the interactions for people and what people are doing. And I find that entertaining. So YouTube to me is like sitting in the bar at home watching everybody else do something. Back to you, Mr. King.
There is certainly no shortage of social media. Every social media platform has, to some extent, video options. And everybody tends to have at least one or two different forms of social media. And I don't, quite frankly, even know how many different social media platforms we currently have out there. But my question is, do you feel that there are too many social media platforms currently available? If so, which ones would you eliminate? And if not, if you feel like we don't have enough social media platforms, what is a disruptive form of, or disruptive technology of social media that you would like to create? Mark Schroeder.
Do we have too many forms of social media now? I'll start with the obvious answer. Probably not, because social media is pretty much, the way it works is it's pretty much the same way that freedom of speech is supposed to work in the first place. Everybody gets a voice. The ones that are doing a good job, the ones that are saying the truth, the ones that are in theory doing something of interest to other people, those are the ones that continue to exist, and the others, they kind of wither and die. So whatever is out there, it's out there. And I don't think that we necessarily have too many. Now, I don't know, that may be a very prosaic look at the way things are rather than being revolutionary, but that's okay. I'm fine with that. For me, for instance, there are a couple of things that I use YouTube for, and I'm not sure that there are any other good outlets for it. I use it for two things. I use it for repairs. Anytime something is broken, I go out to YouTube and say, what do I have to do and can I fix this? And in fact, I had one case where I had a headset where I needed to replace the battery. And it was very telling that there was not a single YouTube video on how to replace that battery. The sheer fact that there wasn't one there said something was wrong. Turns out that it is not a user replaceable part. You got to take the thing apart and solder it yourself. And so that's why it's not out. The other thing I use it for is, believe it or not, exercise videos. When the pandemic hit, I was going to Lifetime Fitness. I really picked the wrong year to do group exercise. That's the only way to put it. But I was doing group exercise at that point, and it just went to hell. It turns out that I was doing a thing called gluteus max out. And there are several people from Lifetime Fitness across the nation that have put their YouTube videos of gluteus max out, the full hour, on YouTube. I've now got those, I've actually downloaded them. They're on a USB. I hook them to my TV. I do them at home. I'm not a member of that particular gym anymore, but I'm still doing the workouts, and I'm still doing the workouts with the original instructors. So as far as I can tell, the more the better. They each have got a different focus. The ones that are providing value will survive. The others wither and die. Mr. Table Topics, Mr.
Do we have any guests that would like to try a question this evening?
Levi will.
Yes, I'm checking. Levi would be willing to take one.
All right, Levi, tell us about the most recent YouTube video you watched. Was it enjoyable, and would you recommend it to us?
Yes, the most recent YouTube video. So I have gotten into golf over the last probably 2 years, really, getting my game back in shape. I played a lot as a kid, but I kind of took a break throughout high school and college. So I've been watching golf videos, fixing my swing. My chipping game has not been great, so do a lot of short range stuff, putting. There's a guy named on there, I forget his name exactly. There's a guy out of the UK. He has Rick Shields is his name. He does a lot of great videos, a lot of club testing as well. He tests putters out, drivers, different wedge sets. And so I've been watching his videos a lot. Just trying to work on my game, get some practice in. Gives you a lot of tips for beginners. One thing I was doing wrong for a long time was I had a bad tendency of slicing my drives sexually. And sometimes using a driver is not the best option. So put the driver back in the bag, pull the 3-wood, work on your technique, and then get some more practice in, and then at some point down the road, pull out that driver again. But I would say golf has been kind of it's probably one of the top few videos I've been watching a lot. And then, okay, I can't do that this time. Trying to use the word this time, but I forgot about that. But prosaic is the word. But yes, golf's been one of my best, probably my most watched topics on YouTube. Back to you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Could I have a timer's report, please?
Mr. Topic Master, all contestants qualified on time. Lisa at 1 minute 3 seconds. John at 1 minute 53 seconds. Mark at 2 minutes 24 seconds. And Levi at 1 minute and 3 seconds.
Mary, we have a report on the word of the day.
Certainly, sorry for taking a moment to get up here. Word of the day, I noticed, oops, now I'm already forgot. I should have brought my- Word of the day was used by Mark Sims during his discussion, and I also noticed it during John Vessel's, and not very many people used it during the table. Everybody used it? Okay, no, you're right. Everybody used it. I'm sorry, I was zoned out. Everyone used it during table topics.
At this time, please vote for the person that you felt did the best job with table topics. Your choices for tonight would be Lisa, John, Mark Schroeder, or Levi. And with that, I'll now turn the meeting over to our general evaluator.
Thank you, Lee. All right, I'm John Vessels. I'm the general evaluator for this evening. Now, the general evaluator's job is to evaluate the meeting, listen to the evaluator for the prepared speeches, and also our duty holders. So we have a meeting, we practice our speaking, we do the table topics, to practice the promptu speaking. And then the last portion is to evaluate all we've heard tonight. That's how we learn and that's how we become better Toastmasters. So a couple of things about the meeting. We did start a little bit late, a little technical issues, getting everything round up. But that's fine, we're good. We only had one speaker tonight, so our time wasn't really long, so we're good. But of course, Rob's speech made up for not having one speaker. But it was still a very good speech. I mean, very professional, very well done. I have to be embarrassed. You were talking about letters, and you stood up here and you said, the NASA, and it's like, I had to write it out. As soon as I wrote out NASA, it's like, oh, it's NASA. Okay. Never think about it that way. I was like, NASA, don't say the letter. Throw me off. I knew an ERCP as I've had patients with ERCPs over the years, so I know what that one was. But I missed the second. The first one I knew, the last one I knew. So we all learned with letters. That's why I was raising my hand. I know what that one is. And yes, you look totally different than you do now. I would never have recognized. So throw a little weight. No, I'm just teasing. Okay. Also, I'm jealous because now Mark's retired. It's like, oh, when am I going to get to retire? It's only a couple of years for me, but not too long. Ideally, all the money holds out. All right. Now I'd like to go ahead and introduce our evaluator for Rob's speech, and that's going to be Justin. So Justin, will you come on screen and give us your evaluation of Rob's speech?
Yes, Rob gave a great speech. I'll be doing a 3-2-1 method. I actually tried not to do this, but I think my brain works in this way. So I'll give 3 things I liked about this speech that were excellent, 2 things he can improve on, and 1 thing to actually challenge him on during the speech. So the first thing I would like to say is very good opening use of body language, the way he presented himself at first. And I was a bit confused and thrown off. I'm like, when is it gonna get to the actual slides? He spoke for like a minute. I'm like, did he forget the actual topic? But he led up to it. Very good, Rob. It was well organized. Good use to when he finally got into using the actual slides. It was very, very informative. Not too many slides. It didn't take away from his speech. It was more explaining and descriptive. Also, I like the illustration in the pictures, good images of the organs and explaining the different diseases. That was very good. Also, very good use of languages and like UC, Ulcerative Colitis. That was very good. Two things to challenge you on, or two things you may could improve. I know the speech is timed, so there's a time limit on it, but I would like to hear more of a background on how you became sick with UC and what led up to it. Also, I would like to hear how did UC affect your life, and what point of your life did this happen? Were you 20, 30, were you in college, were you working a job? More information of what happened. So finally, I would like to challenge you, Rob, and I would like to give you same thing, give more background on your life leading up to UC, and just give more background overall of your speech. It was a great speech. You have great descriptive words. I think you first said 100 million people will get UC. I'm like 100 million people. That's like 1/3 of the US. But then you corrected yourself, 1 million people, 10 out of 100,000. So that was good. Like the uses of acronyms was really good, like UC, Psc, the liver, like how the bile ducts and how you can have a live donor. That was really incredible. I really enjoyed the newspaper of doing your brother too, and actually seeing it on screen. That was like a heartfelt moment, like a hallmark moment. Overall, fantastic speech. It was heartfelt, great information, and great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I want to go ahead and get reports from our duty holders tonight. Oh, what about the timing report?
Mr. General Evaluator, Justin qualified on time, 3 minutes and 13 seconds.
All right, thank you. Okay, we don't have to vote since we only had one evaluator tonight, but again, if you have any comments to make for anybody through the entire evening, you can always put it on the cards, put it in the cups in the vote counter. We'll get them and pass them out to the people that are here. Now, let's do some of the duty holders reports. And since Rob, you're already talking, let's hear yours. Don't you? Oh, that was it. No, you were timer. Sorry about that. My error. All counter, Lisa. Lisa, can you give us an all counter report, please?
Yes, so I am going to take accountability for myself. I had multiple ums and ands, and at the beginning there was a very weird pause because it was awkward and I got tongue-tied. John, there was a few uhs and so's. Levi, you had a couple of so's and uhs, and Justin, you had a couple of and likes. But other than that, I think everybody did a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Our other duty holder this evening, posture monitor, was Mark Sims. So Mark, will you present us with?
It's a very good night overall with gestures. And I echo what Justin said about Rob's speech, and that Rob, you had very good gestures, very smooth all throughout. For example, you were counting off some of the medical conditions you had, but it was just very natural, very smooth. And John Vessels, you made a unique type of gesture to return the program, the attention to Lee. You kind of did something like that, which was nice. Mark Schroeder, again, there was a good count out to make your points. I noted a slide extended hand clasp. I mean, a few brief ones, which is fine, but one that lasted a little while. And Levi, I didn't ring the bell on this since it's your first time, but there's very little to look at, but again, kind of a very long extended hand clasp. I mean, it's sometimes difficult to know what to do with your hands. We try and keep them by our sides, but you didn't put them in your pockets or anything like that. Nothing real distracting, but I didn't know that went on quite a while. But overall, it's a very good night. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mark. And now our other report, our other Mark, who's our grammarian for this evening. So Mark, how much your grammarian report?
Thank you so much. Yeah, the Mark show tonight. I'm going to do the grammarian report. First of all, let me do the word of the day, just because I had premature exposition, as you probably noticed earlier when I said that we had two people who used it outside of table topics, which were Mark Sims and John Vessels. Did anybody use it outside of table topics that I missed? Not that I noticed. I have a question. Mark Sims, did I actually hear you say neck getting red?
Yes.
So in other words, was that intended to be a euphemism for redneck? I ask because I've heard it used exactly that way.
No, but what I was thinking of, sometimes people have responses,
Angry responses, okay. I wasn't sure what to take it with as the, you know, the hair on the back of the neck and anger, or whether it was neck getting red as in redneck, because I have heard that joke done before. Okay, Rob. Oh my God, where to start on the words? We'll start off with just living with letters. I'm one of these people that loves a speech title that doesn't tell you everything about the speech, doesn't really tell you the key point, or the, you know, doesn't let it out of the bag of what you're going to be talking about in your speech, but it's still correct. And living with letters, I thought was very, very clever as a result. That's one of the things I love. I try to do that with all of my speech titles. I also noticed progression, duodenum, strictures, endoscopy, dilation balloon, stent, cadaver. We don't get a lot of those words in this meeting most of the time. Congratulations, I liked all of them. With regard to additional stuff, Justin, rather than just saying things, let's see, what was the way you phrased it? Rather than saying things that she could have done better with, you used the word challenges. I liked that. I liked what, no, it was a good phrase, but it had a grammatical error. Led up to it very good. Should have been led up to it very well, probably. I also noticed that you just be careful. You have a tendency to use the word great over and over. Great is, it's a great word, but it's not a particularly descriptive word. Try to mix it up a little bit, just because I noticed it in like 3 or 4, maybe, in a progression of properties of the speech. And I really like the remark about it being a hallmark moment. You are correct. The photo was a hallmark moment. The only thing that it lacked, and unfortunately I have it all the time at home, the only thing that it lacked was the music that goes with Hallmark. My wife watches it, seems like 24/7 unless the Olympics are on. You missed the Hallmark music, but you had the rest of it, and it really was a Hallmark moment. So I thought that was very, very touching and appropriate, Justin.
Thank you, Mark. And so I'd like to go on, yes, I thought we had a great meeting tonight. Very good speech by you, very good subject matter. Table topics, Lee, that was great. I mean, we all can relate to YouTube. So, you know, everybody here has probably watched some YouTube at some point. If not, you live way out where there's no internet and don't have a computer or something. But current subject, something we all do. So, I mean, everybody can relate to it. So that's a, you know, excellent thing. So all in all, great meeting. I'd like to go ahead and call for a vote for the best of the big three. The big three, of course, are our Toastmaster, Mark Sims, our table topic master, Mr. Lee King, or myself as general evaluator. So if you would go ahead and take a moment and vote for that, Karen will pick that up and we'll see who did it. And now we're going to go ahead and move to the business portion of our meeting. So our president, Lee King, please go on the business meeting, sir.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. We will start with introduction of our guests. Barry, will you please tell us how you found us? what brings you to Toastmasters and what you thought of our meeting?
Yeah, hi. This is my second time coming to Toastmasters. Hopefully I'll be there in person after the next week's spring break, but the next week I'll try to be there in person. Interested in just learning how to speak better, meet some nice people, help improve my job, and just speaking in general.
Thank you very much. We also have Levi. Levi, will you please ask the same questions? What brings you to Toastmasters? What do you think about our meeting? How'd you find us?
Yeah, so I heard about Toastmasters actually back in college. Went to a few meetings then, but I kind of dropped the ball. I was student junior year, school happens. So graduated college 2 years ago, always wanted to do it. COVID happened, so I kind of put it in the back burner, but I finally reached out to Mark actually this past week and decided to finally do it, make the jump and just help my professional skills, especially sales skills as well. I think presenting is always a big part of any type of career. So I'd rather get those skills done now and build my foundation and just, continue to learn.
Thank you. And I believe we have one more guest. We have one more guest in the audience.
Michael Brown, I believe.
Not here.
Not here. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, he had to drop early. I actually invited him, but he'll be here next week, I think.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of announcements. Please don't forget that dues are due. The dues are $90 for 6 months. For those of you that are potential members, you would pay an additional $20 one-time fee to join Toastmasters International on top of that. And we will continue the hybrid meetings. For now, that's really all of those are really the only two announcements at this point.
Lee,
Yes.
just real quickly, one of the things I think I know that Dagan said the invoices for people who have not paid are going to go out sometime today, I believe.
Yes, I already got one. So clearly I need to pay. With that, let's go ahead and get a vote counters report.
For our best evaluator, that's Justin Faust. Our best table topper, John Vessels. And our best of the big three, that's Lee King.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next week. This meeting is adjourned.
As Zoom coordinator, give me just one moment to stop the recording, and then we'll be clear.